All right, Miami, Texas A&M. This was definitely one of the slower games that I witnessed this year. I was expecting this one to be lower scoring. I want to say the over-under on this thing was around 42 and a half before we got into this game. Might be a little off on that. It was around that, and I expect this to be lower scoring. I say my score prediction was something like 24-21. So I felt like these were two teams that are really reliant on ground and pounds, especially A&M with rushing the ball. Miami hadn't been able to establish a tempo that well with running the ball, but these are two more balanced offenses, and teams take a lot of pride in defense. And so I was expecting this thing to be a little bit lower scoring. 10-3, 13 total points. I mean, the live odds at the end of the first half, as far as the over-under goes, there's 20 and a half. And if you bet the under on that, you would have hit. And so just thinking about that is wild. Now, were there parts of this game that were very sloppy? Absolutely. Were there parts of it that were boring at times? Yes. And it takes a lot for me to say that about a football game, especially a playoff game. And I'm old school, so I like my defensive slugfests. But even given that vernacular, this one was very slow. Special teams was not good on either side of this game today. I mean, Miami was 1 for 4 on field goals. So this ideally should have been 19-3. Texas A&M missed a field goal too. They were 1 for 2. Oh, am I there? I'm there. Okay, perfect. That was weird. Special teams, everybody's friends today, but there's also the turnovers for A&M today, and that we talked about that in the preview. Was whoever wins the turnover battle in this game is going to win, because both of these teams feature quarterbacks that I like, but don't entirely trust. And both guys, Carson Beck and Marcel Reed, they have that tendency to where if they throw a pick, they're going to throw more. They're going to get in their respective heads. And well, that's what happened with Marcel Reed. I mean, he had a pick earlier in this game, but that final play to end this thing, I mean, he was just trying to force that pass and that crossing route, and it just wasn't there. His timing was also off to extremely behind the receiver. Miami picks that thing off and seals it. And so, and caps off to Miami's defense. That was another thing that we talked about was Texas A&M's matchup with Miami's run defense. Miami's run defense was on one today. I mean, listen to these numbers here. Marcel Reed was Texas A&M's leading rusher, and he had 27 yards off of 15 carries. And he was good at scrambling in the first half, but Miami did a great job at keeping him in a box in the second half and forcing him to be a pocket passer. And when you can make Marcel Reed one-dimensional, that's the recipe to beating this A&M team. And Miami executed that to a T. So caps off to them for that. Reuben Owens, 7 rushes, 21 yards total. Le'Veon Moss, who was out earlier in this game, he had an injury, 7 yards or 7 carries, 15 yards. So A&M could not get that running game going at all. So it was hard to get the play action running with Marcel Reed as well. And I was expecting the Aggies to be able to hit Miami over the top a little bit more. I mean, he had Marcel Reed had a deep pass to Mario Craver. And Mario Craver was your leading receiver. He had 92 receiving yards, and then a drop off to Ashton Bethel-Roman after that. But it was that 159-yard pass they got, and I was thinking that was the one spark that A&M needed to get going, because this kind of felt like A&M kind of felt like Alabama last night early on in that game with Oklahoma, to where they just needed a spark, they need some momentum. They were able to strip Malachi Toney at some point in the third quarter, and I was thinking that was going to be the momentum shifter that sparked A&M. They're at home and get the atmosphere going, but no. Once again, in a big spot, it was an absolute no-show for the Aggies. And I picked A&M to win this game, and I was just completely wrong. I was thinking that they were going to win this thing in the trenches, and that was simply not the case. Let's talk about the trenches a little bit more now, though, for Miami. Because there were clear adjustments in the second half when it came to their protection. I mean, the blocks, the schemes they're running to pick up blocks, Miami's offensive line, like it was unbelievable the way that they're creating running lanes for Mark Fletcher. Mark Fletcher was on one in this game. I mean, I'm just gonna call it for what it is. This was the Mark Fletcher game. Listen to this: 172 rushing yards, over 17 carries, 10.1 yards per carry. He was gaining yards in chunks in the second half. Part of that was because of the lanes that Miami's offensive line was carving out. Like I said, those protection packages they had were unbelievable, and they opened up those passages for Mark Fletcher, absolutely. But his vision, he was trusting what he was seeing. He was hitting those holes hard, and his explosiveness was off the charts. And it was just the spark that this offense needed to generate some points, get this thing going. I mean, all you need to win this kind of a physical, low-scoring game was a touchdown. They got it. They win this thing 10-3. Malachi Toney's end-around touchdown. It perfectly set it up. Carson Beck had 103 passing yards today. That's all he needed. That's all that was needed to win this thing. I mean, what was it, an enthralling performance? No, I thought he looked shaky at times. I don't think he was exactly on, but they didn't really need him to. I mean, Malachi Toney only had 22 receiving yards. That's just that wasn't the game plan. And going into the second half, once I saw Mark Fletcher start to get going, I'm like, all right, special teams isn't working. Carson Beck isn't really on. What is your strength? Identify your strength and lean into that. And that's excuse me, peanut M&Ms, excuse me. And that's exactly what was the winning formula for Miami. Just running that thing up the gut. That Texas A&M had no answer for Mark Fletcher at all in the second half. Let's get into some of these team stats a little bit here. I mean, let's just be honest, y'all. The efficiency was not there at all. At all. Especially third down for both these teams. It was very tough for both of them to convert. Like it just wasn't there. And what I understand with A&M is you've got those explosive components. You know, I don't understand why they weren't leaning into that a little bit more. And Miami was doing a really good job at getting to Marcel Reed, and caps off for them for that. But I would try to crank it a little bit more with a couple deep shots with Casey Concepcion or Mario Craver. I think that A&M was trying to be a little bit too conservative with the play calling. I thought that Cristobal was kind of doing a similar thing too, being a little bit too protective and conservative. This is a game where if you can get a huge chunk play, that's all you need. And you saw it with Miami with Mark Fletcher. You got a couple of those big pop runs there, and that's all they really need to build momentum. But Marcel Reed, as much as I love the elements that he brings to the game for Texas A&M, that a dual threat, his legs and passing the ball as well. I think he's really talented. I think he's explosive, but sometimes when he gets into adverse spots, he gets shaky, he gets panicky, and I think today he was just a little bit too jumpy. And had a couple bad misfires, like you saw that pick to end the game, and that's what was ultimately the difference maker today. All right, I got the team stats pulled up. Miami was 3 for 12 on third down. Texas A&M 8 for 18. So to back up what I was saying, just not very efficient at all. The penalties weren't a big issue today. I couldn't believe that hit out of bounds on Casey Concepcion wasn't called. I thought that was insane. But like I said, turnover battle. A&M had 3. Miami had 1. And a close game like this, that's what you need to win this thing. So I enjoyed it. I know it was a slow game to watch. I know it was kind of a slow burn. But I appreciate these physical knockdown, drag-out games when you get them. I love good hitting. And, I mean, they were popping today. You heard those pads popping all game. And one thing that I do want to kind of bring up is that, the Notre Dame fans out there complaining about not being in. Well, these are the two teams that beat Notre Dame. So anybody wants to call this a putrid game, just think about that fact. Let that marinate. Let that seep in. But yeah, don't really have too much to say about this one. I mean, this was a pretty cut and dry game. Mark Fletcher was the difference maker. It was defensive. Both offenses were sloppy. Special teams was an issue, and it was really one of those games where it's just come down to who's going to crank out a big play, who's going to be able to sustain a drive and get touched on at some point. That's ultimately going to be your game winner. So A&M is done for the season. However, I think that they're building something special with Mike Elko right now. I know this isn't the way that you want to go out if you're an A&M fan. I mean, losing at home in front of your home crowd. I mean, Kyle Field is absolutely raucous today. It was loud, but once again, didn't make a difference. And it's, if you're an Aggie fan, like you're tired of being that first round out, you're tired of building up all the hype just for it to crash. I get it. Look, I live in Texas. I understand the whole whole battered Aggie syndrome thing. But Mike Elko is building a hell of a culture here. He's recruiting at a very high level right now. And A&M is going to get theirs at some point. Last year, they started off 8-1. I only missed the playoffs, but that was huge for A&M to start off 8-1. Never really saw it with Jimbo Fisher. This year, he's off 11-0. Lose to Texas, that's tough. You make a playoff game, you lose out into it. It's not great to lose your last 2 games of the season. I know optically that's not great. But you just take a step back and think about the progress that you have made as a program. Because there's this argument right now that's out there of, oh, it's whoever has the most money, whoever has the most resources, that's who's going to win championships. Yeah, there's truth to that. If you have the infrastructure in place to maximize that talent that you acquire, A&M didn't have that with Jimbo Fisher. Now they do with Mike Elko and his staff, and that's the difference maker. And even though they're losing Colin Klein, that's tough. I think they're still going to recruit at a high level. I think they're going to develop at a high level. So Aggie fans, I know this one is tough, but heads up. Miami, make the CFP. This is a team that has had a monkey on its back for years. They finally get that playoff win here. I feel this program progressing. I can imagine if this team had Cam Ward. I watched this game with my boy Zeke downstairs today. I was just saying, if Cam Ward was at the helm here, this could be a national championship team. However, you have Carson Beck, who, good, but you've got your limitations at the end of the day. But it's great to win a playoff game. Miami will be facing Ohio State here in a few weeks. I like Ohio State a lot in that game. I like Ohio State against whoever came out of this game. I think that's just a mismatch. But I think that Miami will compete with them pretty well. I think they'll go toe-to-toe with the Buckeyes, but at the end of the day, I like Ohio State to win that one. 2 programs on great trajectories here. They meet each other in Kyle Fields. A&M prevails. Slow burn. I had some fun watching it, but I was also mesmerized with some of the special team blunders. But let me know what y'all think about it in the comment section below. Thank you all for watching. Have a great day.